Welcome back to Shocking Stories, where we uncover the most mind-bending true crime cases that will make you question the boundaries between science and the supernatural, and wonder whether our bodies can hold secrets that survive even death. I'm your host, and today we're heading to Baltimore, Maryland, where a police detective's life-saving heart transplant became the key to solving a decades-old murder mystery, because the donated heart seemed to carry memories of its own violent end. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what you're about to hear involves a case that challenged everything medical experts thought they knew about organ transplants, memory, and the possibility that our hearts might literally know more than our minds. This is the story of Detective Michael Roberts, a 45-year-old Baltimore homicide detective whose failing heart was replaced by one from an unidentified murder victim. But when Michael began experiencing vivid memories of a crime scene that matched an unsolved case from 20 years earlier, investigators had to confront an impossible question. Could a transplanted heart carry the donor's final memories? Or was someone using cutting-edge science to frame the dead? Picture this. It's 2:47 a.m. on June 15, 2024, and Detective Michael Roberts wakes up screaming in his Baltimore apartment, his new heart pounding like it's trying to escape his chest. In his nightmare, he's not himself. He's a young man running through a dark alley, pursued by shadows that whisper threats about debts that must be paid. He feels a sharp pain in his chest, hears gunshots, and sees his own blood spilling onto the pavement as a voice says, "This is what happens when you talk to the cops." Michael had received his heart transplant 3 months earlier, after years of battling cardiomyopathy that had nearly ended his career and his life. The donor heart had come from a John Doe victim found murdered in a Baltimore alley, with no identification and no leads on who had killed him or why. Michael was one of our best detectives, but his heart condition had sidelined him for over a year, recalled his partner, Detective Sarah Chen, during her later testimony. The transplant saved his life and gave him a second chance at doing what he loved. But almost immediately after the surgery, he started having these vivid nightmares that seemed too real to be just dreams. At first, Michael dismissed the nightmares as side effects of his anti-rejection medications or the trauma of major surgery. But as the dreams became more frequent and detailed, he began recognizing specific locations and details that matched an unsolved murder case from 20 years earlier, one he had never worked on or even heard about during his career. The dreams weren't just random images, Michael explained in his official statement to Internal Affairs. "I could see the alley clearly. It's the one behind the old warehouse district on East Fayette Street. I felt the bullets hit, heard the shooter's voice saying, 'Snitches get stitches, but traitors get graves.' These weren't my memories, they belonged to someone else." Michael's background as a detective made him approach his own experiences with investigative rigor. He began documenting every detail from his dreams, cross-referencing them with unsolved case files from the Baltimore Police Department's Cold Case Unit. What he discovered sent chills down his spine. The details matched the unsolved murder of a 25-year-old man whose body had been found in that exact alley on June 15, 2004. Exactly 20 years earlier to the day of Michael's first nightmare. The 2004 victim had been identified as David Torres, a low-level informant who had been working with the police to expose a drug trafficking ring. His murder had been brutal, multiple gunshots to the chest, and the case had gone cold due to lack of witnesses and evidence. No suspects had ever been identified, and the file had gathered dust for 2 decades. But Michael's transplanted heart had come from a murder victim found on June 15, 2024, in the same alley, killed in exactly the same manner as David Torres 20 years earlier. The coincidence was too perfect, and Michael's nightmares contained details about the 2004 murder that had never been released to the public. Specific words spoken by the killer, the type of gun used, and even the color of the getaway vehicle. Michael knew things about the 2004 Torres murder that weren't in any police report, Detective Chen confirmed. He described the killer's tattoo, a specific design of a serpent eating its own tail, that had been mentioned only in the confidential coroner's notes. There's no way he could have known that unless the heart was somehow telling him. The concept of cellular memory, the theory that transplanted organs can carry personality traits, memories, or preferences from the donor to the recipient, had been debated in medical circles for decades. While most scientists dismissed it as pseudoscience or coincidence, There were documented cases of transplant recipients experiencing changes that mirrored their donors' lives. In one famous case from 1988, a woman who received the heart of a murdered 18-year-old began having nightmares about the killer and eventually provided details that led to the perpetrator's arrest. Similar stories had been reported worldwide, with recipients suddenly developing new food preferences, musical tastes, or even phobias that matched their donors. Michael's case was one of the most compelling examples of potential cellular memory we've ever documented, explained Dr. Patricia Moore, a cardiologist and researcher into transplant psychology who was brought in to evaluate Michael's experiences. The specificity of his memories and their connection to both the donor's death and an unsolved crime from 20 years earlier suggested something extraordinary was happening. But as Michael delved deeper into the 2004 Torres murder, he began experiencing more than just memories. During waking hours, he would suddenly feel intense emotions that weren't his own: fear, betrayal, and a desperate need for justice. He started craving foods he had never liked before, such as spicy Mexican dishes, and found himself humming songs from the early 2000s that he didn't recognize. "The heart wasn't just giving me memories, it was changing who I was," Michael later testified. "I felt like there were two people inside me, Detective Michael Roberts and whoever this heart had belonged to. And that person was trying to tell me something important about how he died and who killed him." The investigation took a dramatic turn when Michael's nightmares began providing details about the 2024 donor's murder that hadn't been released to the public. He described the killer as a man with a serpent tattoo on his left forearm, wearing a black jacket with a specific gang insignia, and driving a dark blue sedan with a damaged rear fender. These details matched evidence from the 2024 crime scene that we hadn't shared with anyone, including Michael, Detective Chen revealed. There's no way he could have known about the tattoo or the vehicle damage unless he had some kind of inside information, or unless the heart was somehow communicating it to him. The 2024 victim was eventually identified through dental records as Carlos Ramirez, a 25-year-old mechanic with no criminal record who had been reported missing 2 days before his body was found. But Carlos's background raised even more questions. He had no known enemies, no involvement in criminal activities, and no apparent reason to be murdered in the same manner and location as David Torres 20 years earlier. What do you think connected the murders of David Torres in 2004 and Carlos Ramirez in 2024? Drop your theories in the comments below, because what investigators discovered when they began digging into Carlos's background would reveal a conspiracy that spanned 2 decades and prove that Michael's transplanted heart was trying to solve its own murder. The heart that saved Michael's life was determined to bring justice to its original owner, and in doing so, would expose a serial killer who had been operating undetected for 20 years, using organ donation as a twisted method of body disposal. Like this video if you're as fascinated by this transplanted heart mystery as I am, and let me know in the comments whether you believe in cellular memory or think there's a more rational explanation. Don't forget to subscribe because in part 2, we're going to reveal how Michael's donor heart led investigators to a conspiracy involving corrupt medical professionals and prove that some memories are literally carried in our blood. Welcome back to Shocking Stories. When we left off, Detective Michael Roberts was experiencing vivid memories from his transplanted heart that connected his donor's 2024 murder to an unsolved 2004 case. What investigators discovered when they followed the clues from Michael's nightmares would expose one of the most sophisticated criminal operations in medical history. A conspiracy where a killer had been using the organ donation system to hide his victims in plain sight. The connection between the 2004 murder of David Torres and the 2024 murder of Carlos Ramirez became clear when investigators discovered that both men had been low-level informants for the Baltimore Police Department. But unlike traditional informants, David and Carlos had been providing information about the same criminal organization, a sophisticated network of corrupt medical professionals who were trafficking in black market organs. David Torres had been working as a janitor at Baltimore General Hospital in 2004 when he witnessed suspicious activities in the transplant unit, explained FBI Special Agent Lisa Chen, who was brought in to assist with the investigation. He reported seeing organs being removed from patients who weren't declared brain dead and hearing conversations about selling them on the black market. David's reports had led to a preliminary investigation, but before charges could be filed, he was murdered in the alley behind the hospital. The case went cold due to lack of evidence, and the organ trafficking ring continued operating undetected for 2 decades. Carlos Ramirez, Michael's heart donor, had been working as a mechanic in 2024 when he stumbled upon the same conspiracy. Carlos had been repairing vehicles for hospital staff and had overheard conversations about harvesting organs from undocumented immigrants who wouldn't be missed. Carlos went to the police with what he had heard, just like David Torres had 20 years earlier, Agent Chen continued. But before he could provide formal testimony, he was murdered in the same alley, in the same manner, suggesting the same killer or organization was responsible for both deaths. Michael's transplanted heart, Carlos's heart, was providing memories of the moments leading up to the murder, including glimpses of the killer's face and voice. Using these details, investigators were able to create a composite sketch that matched Dr. Robert Walsh, a prominent transplant surgeon at Baltimore General Hospital who had been under suspicion for ethical violations in 2004. Dr. Walsh had been the head of the transplant unit during David Torres's time at the hospital, Agent Chen revealed. He had the motive, opportunity, and medical knowledge to orchestrate both murders and use the organ donation system to dispose of the bodies in ways that would never be questioned. The investigation uncovered that Dr. Walsh had been running a black market organ trafficking operation for over 25 years, using his position to harvest organs from vulnerable patients and sell them to wealthy clients willing to pay premium prices for fresh transplants. Walsh would identify patients who were unlikely to be missed, undocumented immigrants, homeless individuals, or those without family, and declare them brain dead prematurely, explained forensic pathologist Dr. Patricia Moore. He would then harvest their organs for sale while ensuring the bodies were cremated or disposed of in ways that prevented further examination. But Walsh's operation had evolved over the years to include a twisted form of poetic justice. He would murder informants who threatened his operation and then donate their organs to save the lives of police officers or other law enforcement personnel, creating a cycle where the hearts of his victims literally beat in the chests of those who might investigate him. Walsh saw it as the ultimate irony, Agent Chen observed, killing those who tried to expose him and then using their organs to save the lives of cops. It gave him a sense of power and invincibility, knowing that his victims' hearts were keeping his potential enemies alive. Michael's case was the perfect example. Carlos Ramirez had been murdered for trying to expose Walsh, and his heart had been donated to save a detective who might have eventually investigated the conspiracy. But the phenomenon of cellular memory had turned Walsh's twisted plan against him, as Carlos's heart provided Michael with the memories needed to solve both murders. The heart was literally testifying against its own killer, Dr. Moore explained. Through Michael's experiences, Carlos Ramirez was able to provide evidence from beyond the grave that would bring down the man who had murdered him. The raid on Dr. Walsh's private clinic revealed the full scope of his criminal operation. A sophisticated network that had trafficked thousands of organs over 2 decades, generating hundreds of millions in illegal profits. Investigators found detailed records of murders, organ sales, and transplant procedures that implicated dozens of medical professionals across multiple states. Walsh had built an empire on human suffering, Agent Chen revealed. He had corrupted doctors, nurses, and hospital administrators who helped him identify vulnerable patients and cover up the premature declarations of death. The investigation also confirmed the reality of cellular memory in transplant recipients. Michael's case, along with similar reports from other recipients of organs trafficked through Walsh's network, provided scientific evidence that transplanted organs could indeed carry some form of memory or personality traits from the donor. Michael's experiences opened new avenues of research into the phenomenon of cellular memory, Dr. Moore observed. We now understand that organs may carry epigenetic information that can influence the recipient's behavior, preferences, and even memories in ways we don't fully comprehend. As Part 2 of our investigation concludes, Dr. Robert Walsh sits in federal custody awaiting trial for multiple counts of murder, organ trafficking, and conspiracy. The heart that saved Michael's life had become the key to dismantling one of the largest criminal enterprises in medical history, proving that sometimes justice beats strongest in the chests of those who seek it. Don't miss Part 3, where we'll reveal the dramatic trial that brought down Dr. Walsh's empire. Explore how Michael's transplanted memories changed transplant medicine forever, and discover the shocking truth about how many other recipients might be carrying unsolved crimes in their bodies. Subscribe now and hit that notification bell, because the conclusion of this story will show you how one vanished organ donor exposed a conspiracy that had been hiding in plain sight for 20 years. What do you think about the possibility of cellular memory in organ transplants? Let me know in the comments whether you believe Michael's experiences were real or some kind of psychological phenomenon, and share this video to help others understand the complex ethical questions surrounding organ donation and transplant medicine. Welcome back to the shocking conclusion of our investigation into the vanished organ donor case. When we left off, Detective Michael Roberts' transplanted heart had provided memories that exposed Dr. Robert Walsh's organ trafficking conspiracy. What happened next would test the limits of medical science, challenge the legal system's understanding of evidence, and force society to confront the ethical implications of memories that survive death. The trial of Dr. Robert Walsh began on February 15, 2025, in Baltimore Federal Court, presided over by Judge Sarah Kim. The case attracted international attention not just because of the horrific nature of Walsh's crimes, but because it would be the first time in legal history that testimony from a transplanted organ would be considered as evidence. Prosecutor Jennifer Torres faced the challenge of proving that Michael's memories were genuine recollections from the donor's final moments, rather than hallucinations or fabrications. The prosecution's case would rely heavily on scientific evidence supporting cellular memory and expert testimony from transplant psychologists. Dr. Walsh didn't just murder Carlos Ramirez. He tried to silence him forever by harvesting his heart, Torres told the jury during opening statements. But Carlos's heart refused to be silenced. It carried his final memories into Detective Roberts' body, providing the testimony that would expose Walsh's entire criminal operation. The defense team, led by prominent medical attorney Michael Chen, argued that Michael's experiences were the result of psychological trauma, medication side effects, and suggestion rather than any form of memory transfer from the donor. Cellular memory is a fringe theory with no scientific basis, Chen argued during opening statements. Detective Roberts' supposed memories are nothing more than his subconscious mind filling in gaps based on case files he accessed during his investigation. To base a murder conviction on dreams and feelings would be a miscarriage of justice. The prosecution's key witness was Dr. Patricia Moore, a leading researcher in transplant psychology who had documented hundreds of cases where recipients experienced changes matching their donors' personalities or memories. Cellular memory occurs when epigenetic information and neural networks from the donor organ influence the recipient's behavior and recollections, Dr. Moore testified. In Michael's case, the specificity of his memories, details that were never public and matched classified evidence, provides compelling proof that Carlos Ramirez's final experiences were transferred with his heart. To demonstrate the phenomenon, prosecutors presented evidence from other transplant recipients who had experienced similar memory transfers. One woman testified about developing a sudden craving for classical music and memories of a car accident after receiving a violinist's heart. Another described vivid recollections of a drowning incident after a lung transplant from a swimmer who had died at sea. But the most powerful testimony came from Michael Roberts himself, who described his experiences in vivid detail and provided information about Carlos's murder that had never been released to the public or even shared with investigating officers. "I saw the killer's face clearly, drive. Walsh, wearing surgical scrubs under his coat," Michael testified. "I heard him say, 'You should have kept your mouth shut about the harvests.' These weren't my memories, they belonged to Carlos, and they were as real to me as my own experiences." The defense attempted to discredit Michael's testimony by pointing to his history of heart medication side effects and the psychological stress of major surgery. They presented expert witnesses who argued that cellular memory was pseudoscience and that Michael's experiences were likely the result of confabulation, a psychological phenomenon where the brain creates false memories to fill in gaps. But the prosecution's rebuttal included brain scans showing unusual activity in Michael's temporal lobe that matched patterns seen in other cellular memory cases. They also presented DNA evidence confirming that trace amounts of Carlos's neural tissue had integrated into Michael's heart muscle, providing a potential biological pathway for memory transfer. "The science is clear," Prosecutor Torres argued during closing statements. "Carlos Ramirez's heart carried his final memories, and those memories are testifying against his killer today. To ignore this evidence would be to deny justice to Carlos and all of Dr. Walsh's victims." The jury deliberated for 4 days before returning guilty verdicts on all charges, including multiple counts of murder, organ trafficking, and conspiracy. The decision marked the first time in legal history that evidence from cellular memory was accepted in a criminal conviction. Judge Kim sentenced Dr. Walsh to life in prison without parole, calling his crimes a fundamental betrayal of the medical profession's sacred trust. The sentence included a provision that Walsh would never be eligible for organ transplantation if he ever needed one, a symbolic punishment for his abuse of the donation system. The legal precedent established by the Walsh trial led to new guidelines for investigating and prosecuting cases involving cellular memory evidence. Transplant recipients who experienced donor memories were now eligible for psychological support and, in some cases, legal protection if their experiences revealed criminal activity. The Michael Roberts case opened new avenues for solving cold cases through transplant recipients, explained FBI cold case specialist Dr. Lisa Martinez. We've established protocols for interviewing recipients who experience unusual memories and cross-referencing them with unsolved crimes. Michael Roberts continued his career as a detective, but with a new specialization in cases involving unexplained phenomena and transplant-related mysteries. His experience with Carlos's heart led him to become an advocate for organ donation while raising awareness about the potential psychological effects on recipients. Carlos saved my life twice, once by giving me his heart, and again by helping me solve his murder, Michael reflected during a TED Talk that went viral with over 50 million views. Our hearts are more than just pumps, they carry our stories, our memories, and sometimes our final truths. The family of Carlos Ramirez found closure through Michael's experiences and the successful prosecution of Dr. Walsh. They established a foundation to support transplant recipients experiencing cellular memory phenomena, providing counseling and resources to help them integrate their donors' experiences. Carlos's heart continued to seek justice even after his death, said Carlos's sister, Maria Ramirez. It found a home in Michael and gave him the strength to expose the man who killed my brother. In a way, Carlos is still alive, still fighting for what's right. The broader impact of the case influenced organ donation policies, with new requirements for psychological screening and support for recipients who might experience donor-related phenomena. Medical schools began incorporating cellular memory research into their curricula, and transplant programs developed protocols for addressing unusual post-surgical experiences. The case also sparked philosophical debates about the nature of identity, memory, and consciousness. If memories could be transferred through organs, what did that mean for our understanding of the soul, the self, and the survival of consciousness after death? Michael's case proved that we are more than our brains, Dr. Moore observed. Our memories, our experiences, our very essence might be distributed throughout our bodies in ways we don't yet understand. The heart, in particular, seems to carry profound emotional and experiential information. As our investigation into the vanished organ donor concludes, Dr. Robert Walsh remains in federal prison, serving a life sentence for his crimes. The heart that exposed his conspiracy continues to beat strongly in Michael Roberts' chest, a living reminder that justice can sometimes come from the most unexpected places, even from beyond the grave. The story of Carlos Ramirez and Michael Roberts shows us that death doesn't always silence the truth, and that sometimes the most powerful evidence comes not from witnesses or forensics, but from the beating heart of justice itself. If this incredible story of transplanted memories and uncovered conspiracies has moved you as much as it has moved us, please like this video and share it to help others understand the fascinating possibilities of cellular memory and the ongoing mysteries of organ transplantation. Subscribe to Shocking Stories for more investigations that explore the intersection of science, crime, and the supernatural, and the ways that our bodies can hold secrets that survive even death. Remember that every heartbeat tells a story, and sometimes those stories demand to be heard, no matter the cost. The vanished organ donor may have lost his life to a killer's bullet, but his heart found a new home where it could finally speak its truth and bring justice to those who thought it was lost forever. In the end, Carlos Ramirez didn't just save Michael's life. He saved the lives of countless others by exposing a conspiracy that had thrived in the shadows for 20 years.